Good evening. Welcome back to Hellhound's Late Night Spook Show here in the Horror and Metal channel. If you've been watching this channel, you'll know that I've been doing my making lists for my top 10 movies for each year in the 80s, my favorite decade, and so I'm going to continue that streak today with my top 10 1986 horror films. So for 1980 through 1985. Check out those videos for more info. Let's go and get started. Number 10, my 10th favorite horror film from 1986 would be none other than Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Now, I know a lot of people don't like this movie, and it definitely takes a totally different direction from its predecessor, the awesome original, which is just a masterpiece. This is more of a horror comedy. It's almost like a spoof of the first film. It's a lot more gory, a lot more over the top, a lot more explosive, and I think a little more entertaining, more amusing. It's a very fun movie. It's funny, it's very humorous. Dennis Hopper hams it up nicely. It's great to see Jim Saito return as Drayton. I think Bill Johnson's a pretty good Leatherface. Not quite as good as Gunnar Hansen from the first movie, but pretty good nonetheless. And yeah, I love that Breakfast Club parody cover. Yeah, and yeah, it's a really fun movie. Like I said, it definitely cranks it up a notch. Definitely turns it up to like 11 when it comes to gore and shock. It's not quite as scary or suspenseful as the first movie. It's definitely not as sophisticated, but it's really great. I kind of like that it takes a totally different direction from the first. They didn't just try to copy the original. It's not just an imitation like so many sequels are. This one's a totally different movie. Like I said, almost like a parody. But it's very fun, amusing, very enjoyable flick. And I highly recommend it if you're into really action-packed, really humorous, really zany, really over-the-top, really out there, bizarre horror comedies that don't take themselves too seriously. Check it out. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. My 9th favorite horror film from 1986 is going to have to be Poltergeist 2, The Other Side. Yeah. Just this one, not this. Basically, the Frayling family returns once again. And I do prefer the first movie, of course. Directed by the great Tobe Hooper, and also Steven Spielberg had a lot to do with it. The thing about this one is we have Reverend Henry Kane, played by Julian Beck, who's one of the creepiest horror villains ever, right up there with Angus Scrimm as the tall man. He's great. He really makes this movie. I wish he could have been in it more. He actually died during filming. He just gives me chills every time. He's a great villain. The rest of the family is good. Of course, Tom Skerritt returns. Craig T. Nelson, sorry. Tom Skerritt was in the third movie. Yeah, Craig T. Nelson returns as the dad. Jo Beth Williams is the mom. Heather O'Rourke is the young daughter, Carol Ann. Zelda Rubinstein returns as Tangina. Yeah, great cast, great characters, great scenery, great settings, great special effects. Really cool out there supernatural theme, which I always like. I love ghost movies. Ghosts are actually my favorite. Most people prefer vampires, zombies, or aliens. I always like ghosts the best. A good creepy haunted house story is my favorite. And Poltergeist 2 has loads of that sort of thing. And of course, it's made all the better by Julian Beck as Henry Kane, Reverend Kane, one of the creepiest horror villains ever. Poltergeist 2, The Other Side, my 9th favorite horror movie from 1986. Alright, so next we have From Beyond. Yeah, H.P. Lovecraft's From Beyond, directed by Stuart Gordon, who also did Reanimator, of course. This has a very similar feel to Reanimator. It's very over-the-top and very gory, with great special effects, great makeup work. It looks amazing. The practical effects here are just superb. Just absolutely stunning. Jeffrey Combs, who is also in Reanimator, is in this too, as is Barbara Crampton and genre favorite Ken Foray, who of course is in Dawn of the Dead. I always like him a lot. Great cast, great characters. Really interesting, really out there premise. It's kind of hard to explain. Really bizarre movie. Very over the top and just very, very weird and very surreal. But very enjoyable nonetheless. I definitely recommend you check out From Beyond. My 8th favorite horror film from 1986. I need to review this on this channel soon. Alright, next, my 7th favorite 1986 horror film is none other than The Hitcher, the original, with Rutger Hauer playing the villainous title character and C. Thomas Howell playing the lead. Yeah, basically, C. Thomas Howell's character picks up a hitchhiker, um, and is just frequently terrorized by the man, who reveals that he's actually a murderer with malevolent intentions. Yeah, this movie's just a classic. I absolutely love it. It's very entertaining. It's got a very riveting finale. It's very engaging, very in depth, and just very interesting. Great acting by Rutger Hauer and C. Thomas Howell and all the rest of the cast. Yeah, it's directed by Robert Harmon, and I just love it. I need to review this as well because it's always been one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love it. The sequel wasn't too good, and neither was the remake. We'll always have this classic, The Hitcher. Great movie. Check it out. All right, my sixth favorite horror movie from 1986 is April Fool's Day. Now, this is technically a slasher flick, but the twist ending makes it just a little different from other slashers. I was going to review this on the 1st of this year, but come to find out I already reviewed this a while back, so check out my review for more info. Basically, yeah, it's a great 80s slasher. Amy Steele from Friday the 13th Part 2, my favorite final girl in the Jason series, is in this, as is Thomas F. Wilson, who of course played Biff in the Back to the Future movies. Yeah, great cast and characters. It's directed by Fred Walton. And yeah, really interesting twist at the end, which I don't dare give away. I won't spoil it. I'll just say see the movie to see what I'm talking about. But yeah, April Fool's Day. Great 80s slasher, and by one of my favorite horror films from 1986. Avoid the remake like the plague. This one's where it's at. My fifth favorite horror movie from 1986 is going to have to be Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which I don't own. I used to have it on VHS back in the day years ago, but got lost, I guess, and I really need to get it on DVD or Blu-ray, like real bad. I need to order that movie ASAP because it's great. Yeah, Michael Rooker plays as the title character Henry. Yeah, him and his partner in crime, Otis, played by Tom Towles, are real-life serial killers. It's a very brutal, very sadistic, very mean-spirited movie. Yeah, very disturbing stuff, and it's loosely based on real-life serial killers Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole. Yeah, it's very realistic, very gritty, very in-depth. It's not Freddy or Jason. This is a real-life serial killer. It's, like I said, it's very, very shocking and very horrific. So if you're faint of heart, I probably would recommend you watch it because it's very gruesome. And like I said, very, very, very serious and very realistic. Yeah, very shocking stuff, but I absolutely love it. It's a great movie. Yeah, and yeah, like I said, it loosely is based on the events of Henry Lee Lucas, the real-life serial killer, and Michael Rooker does a great job as Henry. Yeah, very brutal stuff. Definitely don't watch it if you're easily offended. All right, so what are we on now? My fourth favorite horror movie from 1986 is David Cronenberg's remake of the 50s monster movie, The Fly. One of my favorite sci-fi horror movies and one of my favorite remakes. This is one of the only remakes I can think of that's actually better than the original. I love the original 50s The Fly with Vincent Price. It's a great movie, but this one's better in every way. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum stars as Seth Brundle, who's invented a teleporter in which he could, warp objects and living things from one to the other, which would be a really revolutionary invention and really, really high tech. And he shows his new invention to Gina Davis's character, who's investigating. She's a reporter. And something goes wrong, and a fly gets stuck in one of the telepods and ends up merging with Seth Brundle, and he becomes a half-man, half-mutant hybrid creature. Half-man, half-fly mutant hybrid creature, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, great practical effects. Really, really, really good. Just really, really top-notch by Chris Wallace, who directed the sequel. Great directing by David Cronenberg, who's like the master of really weird, really bizarre, really out-there movies. And yeah, great acting from Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis and just everybody. Yeah, great movie. Pretty creepy, very scary, very disgusting. It's a very gross movie, and it's very disturbing, too. And the ending is very sad and very bleak. It's very kind of grim and hopeless, but very enjoyable nonetheless. Just know that don't watch it while you're eating. If you have a weak stomach, probably skip this one because it's very, like I said, it's very, very repulsive, but really awesome at the same time. And yeah, amazing special effects. Yeah, definitely check out 1986, The Fly, directed by David Cronenberg, and check out the original too. It's a good classic sci-fi movie. All right, my third favorite horror movie from 1986 is going to be House. Directed by Steve Miner, who also did Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3, and from a story by Fred Decker, and screenplay by Ethan Wiley. This movie stars William Catt as Roger Cobb, who inherits his deceased aunt's large house, which turns out to be haunted. It's full of zombies and monsters, just various rubber creatures. I rented this from the video store back in the day, several years ago. I just absolutely fell in love with it. This movie's an absolute blast. It's not really scary. It's more like a horror comedy. It perfectly balances humor and horror. I really like William Catt as the lead, Roger Cobb. He gave it a very engaging performance. He's very believable and became kind of a badass in a way. He had to arm himself to fight all these evils that lurk in the house while he's trying to find his missing son. George Wendt is hilarious as the nosy neighbor. He's always really funny. He's always good. Of course, Richard Mall plays Roger Cobb's deceased war buddy who was served in Vietnam with him, and he's haunted by visions of his death and stuff. Kay Lins plays his ex-wife, and Mary Stavin, I believe is her name, plays another neighbor who kind of may have a thing for Roger. Really interesting looking creatures, really cool monster effects, great costumes, great practical effects. A really interesting finale. My favorite creature in the movie is probably the ghost of Big Ben, who's basically like a zombified army soldier. Very fun movie, just a blast. It's very, very enjoyable. Just highly amusing. I absolutely love it. One of my favorite horror comedies, and my third favorite horror film from 1986, House. Love it. My second favorite 1986 horror movie, you knew this had to be on here, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. This is my second favorite Friday the 13th movie, next to, of course, the fourth film, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, and for good reason. This is the first to feature Jason as like a full-fledged living dead zombie. He's accidentally resurrected from the grave by Tommy Jarvis, this time played by Tom Matthews, who's my favorite actor who plays Tommy, who is also, of course, in Return of the Living Dead. It's just a great movie, very fun. I love the opening scene in the cemetery. I love creepy cemeteries at night with mist covering the ground and skeletal trees and wolves howling in the distance and a full moon and like owls hooting in the trees and wrought iron fins. I love that sort of thing, and this one builds the atmosphere perfectly. It's some great scenery, great kills. C.J. Graham's a great Jason. Like I said, Tom Matthews is great as Tommy, the lead character. Jennifer Cook is his love interest, Meg, who's like the kind of like the final girl. Really cool look for unmasked Jason, and had a lot of humor too. This was kind of more of a horror comedy than some of the previous films, though Part 5 was pretty funny too, and even the movies before that had a little bit of humor. This one definitely ups the humor. It's not extremely gory, but there is some pretty brutal kills, like a heart being ripped out and a few others. A man being bent in half. So yeah, there's some pretty brutal kills here and there. There's no nudity to speak of. This is the only Friday the 13th film with none whatsoever. But who cares? I don't care about that. But yeah, great Jason played by C.J. Graham. Great soundtrack. Some Alice Cooper songs. Yeah, awesome movie. Very happy to have this Scream Factory Blu-ray. It's loaded with special features. So definitely check this out if you're a fan. Friday the 13th Part 6. My second favorite Jason movie and my second favorite horror film of 1986. Check it out. Love it. Alright, so before we unveil the number one spot, here are a few honorable mentions. Actually, came up with 10 honorable mentions. First we have Slaughter High. I really wanted this movie to make the list because I love it. This movie's a blast. One of my favorite 80s slashers. It's very cheesy and very sleazy, but very entertaining. It's a highly amusing flick. Simon Scudamore stars as Marty Ranson, who's a bullied teen who A horrific accident goes, a prank goes wrong, and he comes back for revenge at a high school reunion years later and gets even with his tormentors. Carolyn Monroe, who's been in plenty of horror movies, is in this too, and this movie's just a blast. I reviewed this on my channel. I did a re-review somewhat recently, so check that out for more info, but I definitely recommend it. Slaughter High. I really wanted to make this list. I really wanted this to make the list, but whatever. It didn't quite make the cut for whatever reason, but yeah, very highly amusing slasher flick. I highly recommend it. Slaughter High. I wanted to make the list. Another one I wanted to make the list is Shopping Mall. Yet another really fun 80s movie. Yeah, it's a bunch of teenagers in a mall who are stalked and killed off one by one by these high-tech security robots. Yeah, these they look like number 5 from Short Circuit on steroids. And yeah, they kill the teens in various different ways. Yeah, there's a laser beam exploding a girl's head, all kinds of really cool moments like that. Yeah, Shopping Mall. Really, really fun movie. Great 80s horror flick, and I really wanted this to make the list as well. Yeah, a lot of great horror movies came out that year, but whatever. Yeah, I wanted this to make the list, but not quite. I guess it'd been number 12 after Slaughter High in the 11th place. And next, one of my favorite childhood movies. I watched this a lot growing up. I rented this from the video store constantly. We have Critters, is one of my favorite sci-fi horror movies. These little monsters that come from outer space and come to Earth to chow down on some humans. You know, they want to eat us. And yeah, it's kind of similar to Gremlins, a little monster movie that's which were popular in the 80s. But my favorite scenes, other than the critters themselves, involve a duo of shape-shifting intergalactic bounty hunters who come to Earth in search of the critters. They're trying to hunt them down, and they actually cause more destruction than the critters do. They pretty much destroy a church and a bowling alley and cause all kinds of damage. It's really funny. Yeah, great cast. All of the family members, they all feel like a real family. Of course, Dee Wallace Stone, who was always the mom back in the 80s, does a great job, as does all the characters. The whole cast is great. Yeah, pretty dark movie. It's a lot more serious than you'd expect. Like I said, better acting than movies of this type usually have. But yeah, Critters, very fun movie. It's one of my childhood favorites. Very nostalgic for me. I watched this a lot growing up, and I still love it. I think it still holds up. The sequels, not so much. This one's the best by far. Critters. I wanted that to make the list as well. Also, Psycho 3 is yet another honorable mention with Anthony Perkins returning as Norman Bates yet again. And this one feels a lot more like a typical 80s slasher movie than the previous films. Yeah, it's mostly just a body count with some brutal kills and some, over-the-top violence. Yeah, Anthony Perkins is great once again as Norman. Yeah, as always. Juliette Cummins, who, of course, is also in Friday the 13th Part 5 and Slumber Party Massacre 2 and a few others, is one of the victims. Yeah, an interesting twist at the end that kind of undoes the one it's seen in Psycho 2, the previous film. But great movie. I definitely recommend it. And Anthony Perkins himself actually directed this one too. He directed and starred as Norman Bates. Yeah, I can always watch people getting off to the Bates Motel. It's always a good time. So, yeah, I love the Psycho movies, and this one's no exception. Psycho 3, check it out. Not quite as good as the first two, especially the first one, which is a masterpiece, but it's still a pretty fun, schlocky, kind of more B-movie feel type of flick. Check it out. Alright, next we have Demons 2, the sequel to what I consider the most entertaining Italian horror movie, Demons. This one's directed once again by Lamberto Bava, and produced by Dario Argento, the great Dario Argento. Yeah, very fun movie. Not quite as good as the first one. This time it doesn't take place in a movie theater. It takes place in a high-rise apartment building. Still some great practical effects, great gore, pretty gruesome, pretty graphic death scenes, great-looking demons. Yeah, this looks a blast. It's very fun. I don't know why so many people dislike this one. I think it's, really amusing as well. Like I said, not quite as good as the first movie. But yeah, pretty entertaining nonetheless. Demons 2. Check it out. Alright, then of course we have Class of Nukem High, probably the second best known trauma film next to Toxic Avenger, of course. Yeah, pretty gross, pretty pretty weird movie. The plot is kind of already explained. These students in high school, of course, some that have no business being in high school and probably wouldn't be allowed in a real high school. But yeah, it's over the top and really bizarre and really just weird, but kind of ridiculous and silly like most trauma films. But if you're into this sort of thing, I think you'll find it really, really enjoyable. Yeah, check it out. Yeah, basically there's all kinds of gross stuff going on, radiation. Yeah, the mutants and just the little monsters and all kinds of weird stuff. Yeah, as is the case with most Troma films. Yeah, classic Nukem High. Probably one of the better Troma films. Next we have TerrorVision. Yeah, TerrorVision, not Video Dead. You're having this double feature Blu-ray. Yeah, pretty fun movie. Yeah, it's this monster that basically comes out of TV and torments this family. It's pretty much just a young boy and his sister and her boyfriend, played by John Grise, who was in Fright Night Part 2. Yeah, pretty over the top, pretty silly, yeah, pretty cheesy, but pretty funny too, and very, very entertaining. Yeah, TerrorVision, not Video Dead. Video Dead came out in '87 and isn't nearly as good. I think TerrorVision is a lot of fun. I actually bought this double feature for Video Dead, but I found that TerrorVision was even better. Yeah, check it out. Really fun, enjoyable flick. I actually have Trick or Treat, which perfectly combines horror, heavy metal, and Halloween. Three of my favorite things. Yeah, rocker Sammy Kerr dies and comes back as a ghostly figure to help this bullied metalhead teen get even with his peers. Really cool. Some pretty cool special effects in this as well. And yeah, the late Tony Fields kind of underplays it as Sammy Kerr. Gene Simmons plays a radio DJ, and Ozzy Osbourne has a really funny cameo as a reverend who speaks out against heavy metal. I mean, is that genius or what? That's hilarious. Yeah, great movie. I love horror movies with a metal theme. There needs to be more of them, because this one's great. It's got some problems, but I still consider it an honorable mention. It'd definitely be in my top 20 when it comes to 1986 horror. Not to be confused with the 2006 anthology Trick or Treat. And I just dropped it. Oops. There they go. I just made a mess. Alright, so another honorable mention is Witchboard. Yeah, it's a pretty fun 80s supernatural horror movie involving some evil spirits that get summoned by a Ouija board. Some kind of bad acting here and there and some pointless characters, but it's a cool movie nonetheless. I like it. And also Killer Party. Yeah, it's a pretty cool 80s slasher flick. I need to upgrade and get a DVD or Blu-ray, because this VHS is all I have. Ditto for Witchboard and Witchboard 2. Yeah. Killer Party. Pretty good movie. It'd make my top 20. If this is a top 20 list, this will be on there. But it's not. It's a top 10. So that's why it's on my honorable mentions. And then my number one favorite 1986 horror film is Night of the Creeps. I despise this Blu-ray cover. This is the director's cut. It also includes the TV ending. It has the zombie dog ending and the UFO/cemetery ending. Thrill me. But yeah. I hate this cover. There we go. That's more like it. Now that looks like an 80s movie. Yeah, basically it's these alien slugs that were an experiment land on Earth back in the 50s and end up being released in the 80s on a college campus and take possession of all these teens. They enter through your mouth and they possess you like zombies. It has these zombie teens running around the campus. Yeah, great cast. Jason Lively from European Vacation is the lead. His friend, played by Steve Marshall, is really funny. But the best character is by far Tom Atkins, who always plays a hilarious badass. And this movie's no exception. He steals every scene he's in. The man's just a riot. He's just a blast to watch. I love Tom Atkins, and in my opinion, this is his best movie. Yeah, great movies. Great, some really interesting, some great gore. Some kind of sad moments too, some really funny moments, some creepy moments. This movie has everything. Has everything I want from an 80s horror flick. They just really don't make them like they used to. And yeah, I love this movie, and that's why it's my favorite horror movie from 1986, Night of the Creeps. Check it out. It's awesome. Oh yeah. Alright guys, well, those were my favorite horror films from 1986. Be sure to let me know what your favorites are in the comments below. Yeah, lots of good ones came out that year. 1986 was a great year for horror. So yeah, like I said, be sure to let me know your favorite 1986 horror movies were in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching my late night spook show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound. Thank you for watching. Till next time, later.